Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Peyman Shahmirzadi. He is the co-founder, COO, and head of Accelerator at PeachScore. They are a data-driven startup accelerator supporting early-stage businesses worldwide. Now, their mission is to make education, networking, and investment more accessible to every founder, offering a 12-week accelerator program that emphasizes AI-driven tools, mentor connections, and potential funding of up to $500,000 through their investment network. Now, under Peyman's guidance, PeachScore has managed over 12 cohorts each year, empowering startup teams to revise their strategies and scale effectively. They've also introduced innovative technology that enhances efficiency, all while cultivating a large community of mentors and investors. Peyman has extensive experience in operational leadership, strategic planning, raising capital, and program management, making him an expert when it comes to helping entrepreneurs navigate early challenges and seize new opportunities. Now, before we get into all this good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefits.com. All right, back to our guest today, co-founder and COO of PeachScore, Peyman. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you for having me. I look forward to the conversation.
So, Peyman, you've worked with over 750 startups across 80 countries. Before you hatched the idea for PeachScore, what were you doing previously that eventually and uniquely positioned you to bring this idea to market?
Sure. I actually have a fairly diverse background. My career started as an engineer. I have a computer engineering background, and I've worked for Fortune 500 companies such as HP, where my career started, and Philips, and a number of different companies of various sizes. But recently, before PeachScore, I actually started my own startup, and then I got into working with startups in an advisory consulting firm that I had as a partner with a friend of mine, actually. And through that, I started really learning the side of working with founders, being able to see how we can support them. I was initially looking at it from a biz dev standpoint and investment standpoint. And then that led me to PeachScore. Actually, I met the founder of PeachScore at the very early stages of the company, in the concept stage, and I became one of his very initial investors. So I think investor number 3 in PeachScore. And sometime later, he asked me to join the company, help scale. And here we are. Several years later, we built the company we have today in the Accelerator program, which I'm very proud of. But through the combination of all these different things that I've done, various different organizations, and I've been part of anywhere from engineering to operations to marketing to program management throughout my career, this is a really natural fit for me in terms of being able to support founders on a number of different topics. And it's always very interesting to work with founders on regardless of the industry, regardless of what journey they're on, being able to add value in terms of what they're doing. So that's how I ended up here. It's been a very interesting ride.
So these prior experiences have really given you kind of a 360 view of what startups and the founders go through. Mm-hmm. And that's got you in a good position to be able to help them and coach them because you've been through what they're about to go through or are going through. So break it out for us. What kinds of services are you guys more specifically offering to your members?
Sure. So several things. We're very different than traditional accelerator programs. First and foremost, we're a technology company. We built the platform in order to be able to service our founders in a number of different ways. So there is a educational component to what we provide, which is the 12-week accelerator. It's both a combination of online learning as well as live workshop sessions all curated and provided through our mentorship network that we have. These are executives that are either in the technology space, investment, in terms of VCs or angels, or even governments that are coming in and sharing their wisdom, sharing their insights for our program. Beyond that, we provide a number of different types of tools available to our founders, such as market insights tool, being able to really see what's happening in the startup ecosystem, being able to analyze their company within an industry that they're in to see who can be a potential competitor to them, partner to them, potential customer to them, as well as tools for helping them raise funding, such as their executive one-pager tool or a pitch deck analysis tool that we just released, in which our founders can upload their pitch deck, and it will come back and give them feedback on the overall quality of the pitch deck, and both holistically and per slide. And above that, we also benchmark every founder, every startup that comes into our program. So what happens is, as companies come in and you fill out your PeachScore profile, your company profile, we analyze your company and benchmark you against 600,000 other companies within the industry. And we're able to provide you a 30-page assessment report that's done from an investor's perspective, as well as we score every startup. And that's how actually the company initially got started, is this benchmarking and scoring system. And then a few years back in 23, we added the acceleration aspect of it in order to be able to support founders. So
PeachScore, there's some kind of a score. And
absolutely,
it was called a Peach.
There's you come onto our platform, you get a score, the PeachScore score. Absolutely, as well as the detailed benchmarking, which is amazing. In fact, that's the main reason I invested in the company initially. Back in the concept stage of the company, was at that time I was evaluating startups for potential investment. And the process, it's one thing if you're a VC firm and you have a number of venture associates, as they call them, to be able to do a lot of the legwork, a lot of the analysis. But as an angel investor with limited resources, being able to analyze startups effectively is extremely time consuming. So when I met Alex, the founder of PeachScore, he was describing to me the concept of being able to using AI, and this is back in 2020. So early days, right? Before AI wasn't talked about the way it is today. Being able to build a system that can analyze startup companies and benchmark them, and be able to use that for both. It's great information for the founder to really understand how an investor will look at him, but also it can streamline the due diligence process for an investor. And that's what really attracted me to the company, because I felt this is something that's really needed, can really change the...
can help you evaluate a large number of deals a lot more efficiently.
Exactly. Much, much more efficiently. And it's like a Swiss Army knife for investors. It really is, because, back when I was initially just using the platform, even in its initial private launch, if I were to value the company using the PeachScore platform, it streamlined the entire process. It's like my first meeting with the founder would have been like the fifth or sixth meeting the old way. So that foundation brought us to 2023, and we looked at really what else can we do in terms of supporting founders. And that's when we built the acceleration platform that basically sits on top of the technology that we built to be able to support founders as we are today.
So can anyone join PeachScore? Is this open to anybody, or is there like a vetting process?
No, you have to apply. Yeah. Okay. There's an application process that you go through, but we are a data-driven accelerator. So the process is not like other accelerator programs where you apply and sometimes you have to wait months and sometimes go through several interviews. Our platform analyzes your application. So it's a short form application that we take. And we also look at data readily available to us within, that's publicly available on your company. Based on that, our engine makes a determination whether you're a good fit for a program or not. If you are, it will give you your acceptance, and you're able to enroll immediately and actually get access to our platform, to our program that same day. So if you apply in the morning, you can be in office hours and start talking to us in the afternoon, which is really unheard of in terms of what we do. In the cases that our platform is not able to really decide whether you're a good fit or not, it will send a message back that's saying some of our team needs to speak with you. And then we do have a normal interview process that we go through, that we talk to the founder to make sure the alignment is there.
So the process would be, I'm a founder, I've got an idea. My idea is for a new kind of calculator.
Yeah.
And so I go in there and I give some information about me, my background, and I explain what the calculator idea is.
To some extent, yeah.
To some extent, okay. And then
you can upload your pitch deck. We'll analyze that. You're talking about what kind of company you have. Are you raising money? How much funding do you currently have? It's a short form questionnaire, but it's enough information to be able to see whether you're a good fit. Keep in mind, our goal is to, and what we do, we support founders from ideation up to Series A. Most of our founders are in pre-seed and seed stage. So most founders are really looking for fundraising is one of the main reasons. Some are looking to scale, but we've had anywhere from a founder saying, I have an idea. Does it make sense to build a company? Versus those that had already, close to raising their Series A, doing $4 million of revenue in the program, looking for introductions in the corporate world in terms of being able to scale their company. So our selection criteria is broader, and it's broader on purpose because our goal is to really support founders at scale globally. This is why, that we structured the program as we have. It's more inclusive, but there's still a process you got to go through in order to be able to get accepted and join the program. And I'm proud to say, I think we're in 80 countries now, so it's been amazing. I mean, meeting founders from all across the globe has been absolutely a pleasure.
Is it challenging to work with folks in different countries because, I don't know, maybe the regulations there are different? Or is the stuff that you're helping them with sort of not at that level?
Regulation's not that much of a concern because of how we're helping them. Fundamentally, every business that you're trying to build requires some fundamental structure, right? Fundraising is pretty much the same everywhere. What's different is the mindset of the investors. Their processes are different. Yes, regulations are different, but if how you speak to an investor is pretty much the same no matter where you're investing. You got to really understand things from the investor's mindset. Why are they investing in your company? It's not because you built the best thing since sliced bread. It's because you're solving a problem that needs to be solved, and that market is willing to accept your product, accept your solution, and bear the price that you're selling. And that's very common regardless of where you're at. Now, different parts of the world have different challenges. The markets are different, the price points are different, the types of solutions that are acceptable are different, and the types of problems we see are very different. One of the things that I was really pleasantly surprised by when I started seeing a lot of companies come to us from Africa, countries like Kenya, Nigeria, and so on and so forth, doing a lot of development around fintech. And it turns out that just money transfer, doing commerce in those regions is extremely difficult. So there's a lot of innovative founders in those regions looking for ways to be able to help people in terms of being able to transfer what we take for granted here. I can sell you some money right now. I can go do commerce online without even thinking about it, but those things aren't readily available due to all the challenges that they have. And seeing some of that stuff is really interesting, being able to see what's happening in different parts of the world and what people are focusing on. But I haven't seen regulation be an issue in terms of the conversations that we've had. Our founders, obviously, depending on the country that they're in, they need to be aware of any kind of regulation or legal requirements that they have. But they come to us, ask us, how should we approach investors? What should I do in terms of pricing strategy? How should I go to market with this product? What does it mean to really analyze the competitive landscape of my company? All from how does an investor looks at it? And that's really the biggest thing, because founders, they may go pitch a lot, right? And typically what they hear back is great job. I appreciate it. We'll get back to you. That's the normal response. And so the founder is left with this sense of, wow, I did really good, but they don't hear back. And they're always wondering why they don't hear back. So one of the things we do in our program, we actually share what the investor is actually thinking. I look at every founder and every startup, and when I'm speaking to them in the office hours that we have, as if I'm a potential investor. And I actually share with them the thoughts. that would come to me as if it was evaluating them for a potential investment. And that's, I think, a
So you kind
huge
of take the
benefit.
kid gloves off and you give them a little
Absolutely.
bit of
Tell
hard
it
love.
exactly what it is, because, I've had, for example, founders show me a pitch, and I asked them, so what was the result? And they go, well, I pitched this on stage. I'm like, amazing. How did it go? They're like, everybody clapped for me. I'm like, fantastic. So what was the results? Well, everybody loved it. Everybody told me I did a fantastic job. Fantastic. So what were the results? And they go, well, everybody clapped. Afterwards, I had a lot of great feedback. Fantastic. What were the results? And after a few times, they realized I'm asking the same question over again. And they said, well, what do you mean? I'm like, what came afterwards? You got all the pats on the back. You got all the everyone clapping for you. What were the results of the pitch? And they're like, well, nothing's happened. I haven't heard anything back. I'm like, aha. So what you're hearing is everybody appreciating that you took the time to come and pitch, but it didn't resonate enough for anyone to want to speak with you further, to really dive into your company, to really learn about you, your team, what the problem you're solving, the product you bring into market, so the conversation isn't continuing forward. Most investors, and myself included, and I got to catch myself once in a while, if I'm out and about and someone pitches to me, typically the response is, thank you, I appreciate it, I'll get back to you if there's an interest. And the reason for that is, if you do say anything that you may be thinking, unless it's super positive and it's like, yeah, let's go have a meeting, the founder typically gets very defensive, right? And wants to justify, and rightly so, they want to justify what it is they're building. And then they'll come back, well, no, this is actually, you misunderstood. This is what we're doing. And then what the investor finds himself is in this little back and forth that they don't want to be a part of. So that's why most of the times you don't hear the raw feedback. I mean, unless an investor is sitting on a panel for feedback, and we do that, by the way. We have those sessions where I bring in investors into what we call practice pitch sessions, and they listen to a pitch and they provide raw feedback, and so founders are able to hear it, not just from us, but also others. But typically that does not happen. So typically it's, very pointed questions if they're sitting on the panel, and that's about it. So we really take the kid gloves off, as you said, and we tell it like it is. And
That's
and
really
no
that's what they need to hear.
Absolutely. And I tell them it's a safe space. There's no judgment. But if you want to really hear, a thought of what investors see or hear when you're speaking, this is what's happening. And it's quite eye-opening for many of them.
I mean, that gives them a chance to pivot, to make adjustments,
if
to maybe abandon the idea if it leads them to the conclusion that this isn't worth pursuing. Yeah. But at a minimum, they can make modifications to what it is that they're presenting.
What's a couple of times what I've had, actually, companies that are doing great come in to see whether they want to raise money, right? And, I always tell every founder, raising money needs to be strategic, and all money is not good money, and every money you get comes with strings. So you got to kind of remember this paradox. So I've had founders come in and say, like, I had one company, in fact, out of Argentina, I believe, they were doing, I believe, about $4 million of revenue. And they came into our program saying, okay, we want to raise money. I'm like, why? Well, we're trying to look to scale faster. Fantastic. And as they went through the program, they really started understanding what it means to be a venture-backed company and having to deal with investors. And at the end decided, no, we're doing just fine growing organically. Not only I do not want to dilute my ownership in the company, I also don't want to deal with outside parties telling us whether we should go left or right. So, and that's a great learning to come in, instead of going and spending months and months building pitch decks and pitching, and after a year, then deciding, wait a minute, this is not the right path. So we can short circuit all of that. So it's been a lot of very interesting discussions with a lot of founders. So every founder's journey is slightly different, but there's a lot of commonality across them.
So somebody applies to the program. If they're accepted, they pay a fee. Mm-hmm. And how much is the fee?
The application fee is $75. The enrollment fee is $275. So if both is $350 for everything that we do. And there's no equity, there's no warrants, there's none of that stuff. So
you guys are not taking an ownership interest in any of the really.
Yeah, we're doing that on purpose. See, a lot of traditional programs, they may not charge an upfront fee, quote unquote. and they'll bring in a handful of cohort members, 15, 20, whatever it may be. At the end, all those members end up pitching to the program owners themselves, and it's a closed pitch. And then they end up, maybe one person gets a potential investment, and that investment comes in the form of, here's $120,000, but we're going to keep 30 grand, 35, $40,000 of it for services that we're going to provide you. So you get, let's say, $85,000 of cash, and we'll take 10% equity, 12% equity, which is super expensive. So, but in the beginning, you're like, well, this is a free program I'm getting in, but that's the reason these programs exist. Yes, they do want to help founders, but they're also looking for ways to invest at very high equity stakes in companies, so we didn't want to do that. Our goal is to really support founders globally at scale, being able to provide them education, access, advisory, mentorship in a way that's never been done before, at a scale that's never been done before. And part of doing that is to not make cost a barrier for them, right? So this is why we love our partners. This is why we really work with amazing partners throughout different regions of the globe. And with them, we're able to really bring down the cost for the founders. So for $350, and in fact, right now, I think our team is running a May bonus where they can actually even get $50 off the application. The money is not the key thing for us that the founders pay. It's being able to provide the value to them. But, he says, so why isn't it free? Because free has a very negative connotation to it. If you're spending a few $100s, at least you feel like, yeah, I need to get my money's worth out of this. And just by coming and participating, because you invested just a few $100s, you end up seeing the value that we provide. I've had many cases where the founders spend 1 hour in office hours with us, and they say, I just made my money back and then some. But on top of it, we have like over $2 million in perks, discounts and credit from AWS and Microsoft and Carta and HubSpot and all these other amazing organizations. So as part of our program, you can come in and apply for those. So the money is not a barrier. That definitely we wanted to remove that.
I was going to say at $350 a pop, there's not much of a revenue incentive for you guys to provide the service, but it sounds like you've also got partners on the back end that are helping.
Yeah, we do. And keep in mind, we're also a venture-backed company. We work with LPs a lot, and so we have investors ourselves. And also, we're working at scale, right? My goal is today we have almost 800 founders that have been part of our program. I want to service 10,000 founders. Imagine those kind of numbers, right? To be able to really make an impact. See, one of the things that's happening in the ecosystem that I maybe not be readily knowledgeable by everyone, that there's over 4 million founders every year around the globe that are building companies looking for support. About half of them end up applying for Accelerator program, 1.6 million, I think the last time I saw the report. And out of 1.6 million, 48,000 or so get accepted into an Accelerator program. And half of them, 18, 20,000 or so, actually get any sort of investment or help. So what happens to the 97%, the 98%? They really don't have a way to be able to get the support that they need. And there's amazing innovation, amazing founders all around the globe. And that's why we're doing what we're doing, because we saw there's absolutely a need to be able to support this ecosystem in such a way, to be able to really help these founders. I mean, I can get a founder sitting in India and Australia and connect them to investors sitting in Silicon Valley, and they don't have to travel anywhere. They can learn from these folks. They can learn from the expertise that we have around us and the knowledge base that's available. Whereas most traditional programs say, okay, you need to fly out, come in and sit in the conference room for 10 weeks. And at the end of it, we'll see if you're one of the selected companies. And if not, then thank you for being a part of our program. That doesn't work at scale. Right. So
there's a huge underserved population of startup founders. Yes, you said it's only but like 3% that are actually sort of getting the attention that they're seeking. Right. Yeah. So you've huge untapped potential.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and there. Don't get me wrong. There are amazing programs out there, like YC, for example. They're a global brand. They got an amazing program. And any founder that asks me, I said, by all means, apply to them. See if you can get into that program. They get tens and tens of thousands of applications, but only select, less than 1%, I believe, maybe 1% or so. So if you can get into a program like that, absolutely. There's many. I mean, I don't knock any of the other programs for anything that they're doing. I think they're all valuable. There's so many founders that need support. But in terms of being able to support founders at scale in a different way, the traditional model just doesn't work. It doesn't work in terms of numbers. And given that we're a technology company and being able to add all this expertise and tools and infrastructure on top of it, we're able to help founders in a way that, frankly, hasn't.
Are most of the companies that are applying to your accelerator tech related?
No, actually, I've had a candy company out of Turkey. I've had a water bottling company here in the U.S. So we're industry agnostic on purpose. Any industry that you're in, we can find a way to support you depending on the support that you need. Now there are some companies that they don't lend themselves well, like for example, consulting firms. If you're consulting firms and you say, I want to raise money, well, that doesn't work because consulting firms, as I'm sure you know, they are human driven. In order to be able to do more projects, you need more people, typically, right? So they don't scale in a natural way that a tech company would, or even a CPG company that's product oriented would, right? So from an investor perspective, they're not as attractive. They typically, and for an investor to invest in a consulting firm, they want to be a part of that business. They want to be a business partner, not a traditional investment. But besides that, any type of industry that we can definitely support.
Okay, so I joined this accelerator program. It's a 12-week program. So I'm going to guess it probably starts like once every month or so. So I kind of wait for or it starts today whenever I want to get in.
But then, as soon as you enroll, you can start, regardless of the day.
And there's online education, and I get access to advisors to ask questions, office hours, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Let me describe it in a little bit more detail. So you submit your application. If your application is accepted, you can enroll immediately. Once you enroll, you get full access to the platform, and then you can come join the office hours. We have office hours twice. This is also very unique to us. So twice per day. So we're in California. I'm in LA. We run the office hours at 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. Pacific time zone. 5 days a week, unless there's exceptions. Like yesterday was a holiday, so we canceled it. But in the 1 year period, you got access to over 500 hours of office hours that you can come into and talk about anything regarding your company. I had a founder earlier today talking about, hey, I'm looking to build this company doing this. Does this make sense? So we had that conversation versus another one, that says, hey, we're already in revenue. We need to scale faster. So, I've had conversations regarding co-founders, good, bad, and the ugly. All kinds of challenges, legal challenges, LLCs versus C Corps, all of these activities. So the program is structured for you to be able to join immediately. Yes, there's a 12-week accelerator component to it, but as I mentioned earlier, 1 whole year of support. And it's based on your schedule, not our schedule. That's also something very unique.
What does that mean, 1 year of support? Once the 12-week accelerator program is over, what is it that I continue to get access to?
Good question. So after you graduate, now you can take 3 months to graduate. If you're ready, you can graduate in less than a month. It really depends. We'll analyze, where you're at. If you're ready to graduate, let's say you're a late stage seed company and, everything is set, you're really looking to scale revenue. We can get you graduated very fast. Once you graduate though, you, as part of our graduation, by the way, you attend a demo day that's inclusive. We invite everybody. It's not just to us, right? So we typically have a few hundred people in attendance from investors, corporates, and as well as government agencies that we work with. But beyond that, after that, we continue supporting you. I have founders that reach out to me and say, hey, Peyman, I'm looking to do a partnership with so-and-so. Can we talk about it? Does this make sense? I had a founder say, hey, I got a term sheet for potential investment. Can we review the terms together? So we providing that as an ongoing support infrastructure. And not only that, we also continue promoting you. We share your success stories on our website. We started actually a podcast to be able to talk to these founders to share their stories a little bit more and continue promoting them, as well as being on our platform. You get immediate visibility within the ecosystem. You can go to our website under portfolio. You can see all of our graduated startups pitch videos, pitch decks, PeachScore profiles. Investors are looking at those, as well as we're doing partnerships with companies such as Dealum, where we're integrating our benchmarking scoring system and collaborating with them. So they have over 25,000 investors on their platform. They're able to see startup scoring, startups benchmarking. So as you maintain your company's profile on our platform, you get even broader visibility, as well as all the support that comes.
So that large network of investors can come in and they can do a search and, hey, I'm looking for something in blockchain or AI, or I'm
you can do that on our platform, but you can also do it on platforms such as Dealum's platform, where all these angel groups are, and they use that platform for their back office. And as startups come in to apply for a particular angel group that's on that platform, that angel group is able to see, what is this startup's PeachScore score? What is their report look like? And that streamlines the entire due diligence. So from the founder's perspective, it's like, being able to stay within our platform, our ecosystem, to continually maintain it. But I think the biggest value founders get post-graduation is the live support that they also get from us. I mean, they can come into office hours, every single day if they wanted to, talk about every aspect of their companies. I mean, that's really unheard of, to be able to just have someone to bounce ideas off of, to validate things, to review, in some cases, contracts. I mean, we don't necessarily do a deep dive in most things, but in whatever we can cover in office hours. And I have many, many founders that take advantage of that throughout the year.
So the funding doesn't actually come from PeachScore itself. It comes from your network of partners and investors.
So we have what we call PeachScore Capital, which is comprised of different angel groups that we work with, different angels, different investors. And their thematic thesis is based on the particular group that we're working in. And they'll come and say, last session that I had with them, they said, we're looking for medtech, biotech companies in the US doing this particular set of criteria. We had startups meeting that requirement, so we brought them into a session to pitch to them directly to see if they were interested in investing. We basically provide input and all the due diligence needed for them to be able to make a decision. But beyond that, that's one venue in terms of being able to raise money. There's so many other opportunities. Our goal is to get our founders ready to be able to go on any stage in any pitch competition and pitch. We work on a 5-minute pitch in a non-vertical based pitch setting. And that pitch, the way we structured it, it's kind of like an accordion, as I call it. If you go in and someone says you have 15 minutes, you can extend it. If someone says you have 3 minutes, you can shorten it to the key points that they want to cover. But that baseline 5-minute pitch really allows you learn how to speak to founders, how to talk in terms of how best to communicate what it is you're doing so you can resonate with investors, So that's, I think, the biggest thing. And we've had many founders raise money, $3 million closing seed rounds. You see, actually, we're starting a new page on our website to share all these success stories. So pre-seed closed 150K, 350K. One of our founders, as I mentioned, he came into the program looking to raise $3 million, and he raised 2.7 of it immediately after graduating. So, there's many success stories like that through the support that we provide. So, and then we're really proud of that, being able to really get our founders ready to be able to really take advantage of what's happening in the ecosystem.
So you kind of touched on this. Each investor or investor group, they've got their own thesis. They've got their own thing that they're looking for.
Sure.
But aside from sort of those specific criteria, sort of big picture, what is it that you think investors are looking for in a startup idea? And what are they looking for in a founder?
Good question. Biggest thing is whether they can make money. honestly. you know, I tell this to our founders too. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're an angel, family office, micro VC or VC. The reason you're investing, unless you're friends and family, is because you're looking to see whether this is the right founder with the right company for you to make money on. That's what they're looking for. Now, their thematic thesis kind of defines what that looks like, whether what industry is in, what stage they're in. But fundamentally, it really comes down to that. You know, um, you asked about the founder. So, what are the traits of the founder? Is the founder someone that has a history of building companies, or is this their first time? And they both are okay. But if you had a founder that's a serial entrepreneur with exits in the past, obviously it increases the chance. See, the way I'd like to talk about this is there's two levers that every investor looks at. One is risk, one is potential of success, right? So as we're evaluating companies, it's like, okay, what's the risk of you failing, me losing my money? What's the chance of you making it, and I'll be able to make some money? So these two levers. I've had other investors tells me, for me, it's fear of me losing my money and my greed of missing out. It's all the same. And regardless of the type of investor that you are, it really comes down to these two things. And the things founders need to realize is every startup is simply a deal to an investor, right? It's just an opportunity. And what is there many of is many, many startups, right? So our demo days, we have 15 startups pitching each time, right? So and as I mentioned earlier, there's 4 million startups globally out there. So there's many of you. So when you want to pitch, you want to make sure that you really understand the perspective of the investor and put the best pitch forward for it to resonate. And in their mind, and within 5 minutes, what's the risk profile? What's your success chances? And it's compared to the other companies that I'm looking at. So an angel may end up looking at 25, 30 companies within a few months, write a check for one. VC pool may be bigger because they might have 10 venture associates. Each one may go analyze 20, 30 companies. But at the end, it comes down to, we're going to write, 2 checks a year, 5 checks, not a year, but a quarter, maybe. But it all comes down to the same thing. So that's the biggest thing we really work with our founders on, to really understand that perspective. Why we say when you start your presentation, it shouldn't be all about you. It should be about your customer and the problem that you're trying to solve for your customer. Because as an investor, unless I believe that this is a real problem, it's a big problem, the pain of it is really high enough, then why should I keep listening? So it's these type of factors that we really look for. And so the founder themselves, though, as an investor, I really look for a founder that's really their vision. As you get to know them, both the vision that they have, their work ethic that they have, what they're thinking of both today and tomorrow, how they're thinking about it matters, and also how coachable they are. Right? I mean, that's sometimes you meet founders that are dead set in their way, and even if you try to help, you see there's the resistance there. So some investors are back offish when they see that. So, but those are some of the key elements that I think every investor really looks for.
Peyman, what's the biggest mistake that you see most founders make?
Not understanding the perspective of an investor, not thinking of the world from the viewpoint of their company only. Really, everything is about them and their company, not really being able to articulate who their customers are and what problem they're having. Why would an investor care? Really missing that gap. I think that's really key. And a lot of it's not to their fault, because if they were never on the other side of the table, it's hard to put yourself there. But you should be able to do that at least with your customer, maybe not an investor. So, and not seeking help. That's the other one. I see many startups that, or founders that after 3 or 4 years of trying it on their own, they finally say, what, maybe I should go get help. Maybe I should go get some advisors. Maybe I should go get some mentors. Maybe I'm missing something. When you're first starting out, you may be coming from an amazing background. Now, there's exceptions, right? They're the 1% that they leave an amazing job, start something, and through their networks, they're able to really hit it out of the park. But generally speaking, most founders, when they first start, their immediate thought is, I know exactly what's going to happen. If I build it, they will come. This is such a fallacy. This is not everybody has that kind of luck, frankly, and it's luck. A great example of that is what was that app? The app during the COVID days. Oh my God, the one that came out with the whole radio shows that everybody was listening to, Clubhouse. The Clubhouse app. I was on that platform. It came out, and it's amazing. Sometimes these things happen at the right time and they go viral and everybody gets on them. And all of a sudden, all these crazy valuations. And so when Clubhouse came out, right during when COVID started, we're all stuck at home. And I get an invite from a friend of mine. You should join this platform. Okay. What is it? Oh, let's go check it out. And I go there, and I was on there every day. I invited other people. Man, this is amazing. Let's come in. Let's have conversations on all this stuff. And I got on many stages. I was talking about, all kinds of stuff. But when the world started going back to normal, no one was going back. And one of the things that I wondered when I was on that platform, how is this company going to make money? They were getting a massive user base, but for free. Great model. But then they started saying, okay, maybe we want to charge users coming in. No, that doesn't work. Maybe we want to do charge people that host premium rooms. They charge for other people to attend. And then as soon as they started really looking at this stuff, everything started falling. I haven't been on that platform for many years. I really don't know what the status is. Hopefully they're doing okay. But see, there's things like that, being able to really how you build a company for the right reason, do you really understand the customer and being able to really define what that customer's pain is. And that pain isn't high enough for them to come and look for a solution. One of the slides that we actually don't have in our flow is a slide called Why Now? And I if you go to research online and you say, what are some of the key slides you need to have? That's one that always pops. So you got to have a slide, say, why now? And I completely disagree with that. Because if you articulate the problem from the perspective of your customer. So as an investor, I understand who's having the problem. If you're a B2C, is it a few number of people? Or is it millions of people? If you're a B2B, is it a few companies, or is it hundreds of thousands of companies, if not a million? What type of problem they're having? What's the pain that this problem's causing them? For me to be able to say, yeah, this problem's real, it's big enough, and it makes sense, then I know why it needs to be solved now.
And that's really the way that you think about this, is framing it in towards of what problem are you solving?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
How big of a pain is it for those people who have this problem?
Otherwise, if it's not painful enough, then why would they want a solution? Right? It's like, sometimes we call it as, are you offering vitamin or are you offering medicine? A vitamin could be nice, but a medicine is because somebody's sick. So in the same analogy, you may be creating a product that a company may look at and say, okay, this could be nice to have, but it's not a necessity. If I had extra money, extra budget, yeah, maybe I'll do this, but it's not core requirement. But if my business is failing, my sales aren't improving, my OPEX is too high, I'm in danger of really losing a lot of millions of dollars potentially, or, then I need a solution. I need a medicine, right? Then, who's providing that for us? So that it's all of these aspects. And this is actually the conversation you and I are having, is what we end up having during our office hours. When founders start approaching us and talking to us about what they're doing and being able to speak with them from this perspective, and they go, wow, never even thought about it that way.
So you obviously get to see all kinds of businesses. I mean, you've got probably, one of the best sort of big picture views of what's going on in the startup space because of what you guys are doing at scale. Yeah. Are there particular trends or emerging technologies that you're seeing and or are particularly excited about?
Well, I think what I see is what everybody sees today. AI is very dominant in just about every industry. Now, whether it's real AI or what people think is AI is a different conversation, but I've seen some really interesting stuff happening around AI that really solves big problems. I had a founder that recently joined us. What he's doing is built an AI to be able to digest cold case data and from law enforcement or insurance, right? Being able to pull in massive amounts of data, whether it's cold or whether it's active, and being able to quickly provide actionable insights. That's huge value, and being able to really help that organization to be able to get to a conclusion on a particular case, sometimes in a matter of days or weeks, if not months or years. Huge value, being able to around AI and robotics is another place that I'm seeing a lot of innovation, really interesting stuff. One of our companies builds robotics fixtures for dental dentistry schools, which was this was really interesting for me. I mean, when I met this founder, I was like, "Why are you doing this?" He goes, "Well, do you realize that most dentists, and he's out of Canada, by the way, most dentists, when they become dentists, when they graduate, they actually rarely have worked inside of a human's mouth." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, once they work in a dental office, they get to practice in people's mouth." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." He goes, "No, that's very prevalent." Right. And by the way, he saw this because his spouse became a dentist, went through this. And he's got a background in robotics and AI and all this technology. He goes, "Well, we can fix that." He actually built robotic fixtures that mimic the human mouth. And he's able to provide it to schools, universities, dental universities, for the students to be able to actually pretend like they're working in the human mouth. So that's the kind of thing I love, is being able to see a real problem that especially has human implication and building technology around it to solve. Right. I have another founder that's actually very close to graduating. They built an AR platform for doing surgeries, being able to really look at the human. So you wear the goggles and being able to see the patient and actually see what the doctor needs to do from a VR standpoint before they actually start.
They're looking at an actual patient with the AR setup, or they're looking at a virtual
the actual patient. So very, very interesting tech there. There's another one actually. See, the human element to me is key. One of our other companies built a VR platform for training for the construction workers, people working with heavy machinery, heavy equipment on construction sites, right? Why did they build this company? Well, because they knew someone that got hurt very badly. Right. So they saw, well, we have a training issue here. Right. And those are the kind of things that really resonate, because it's not only it's a real problem, but it's also a human problem. And being able to build technology around it that can really help. So those are the things I'm excited about. Anytime I've seen companies that really find areas that from a human perspective, there's deficiencies or challenges that technology can solve, I get pretty excited.
How about maybe one of your earlier, I'm going to call them students, one of your earlier Accelerator participants that has now gone on to find a pretty substantial level of success?
Well, the one I mentioned that raised 2.7 million, it was in cohort 1. I actually met him.
Can you say more about what her business is?
Yeah. They're a climate tech company. They built technology in order to be able to work with manufacturers to be able to really analyze their carbon footprint and be able to help them reduce, their overall statistical data behind what that manufacturer is doing, and be able to help them reduce what it is they're generating in terms of from a climate impact standpoint. And I actually met him while I was at Germany. The German government out of NRW is one of the partners that we work with, and we actually took a delegates of startups there to be able to be at an event. And this founder was there from an Indian delegation, sharing there. And when I met him, they were like, we're trying to raise $3 million to take this company to the next level. And through our conversation, they ended up joining. And one of the biggest things that we worked on during the part that he was part of the Accelerator in that first cohort was on his pitch, getting it to resonate with the investors. Being able to really articulate when you have such high growth rate in a financial projection, how best to communicate that. And he's been doing great. In fact, he's showcased on our website. The company is Living Sense. You can see them on our website and see what they're doing.
And we've referenced the website a couple of times for those folks listening. It'll be in the show notes, but it's PeachScore.com.
PeachScore, Peach like the fruit with score,
yeah. You mentioned before you've got your own podcast where you're highlighting some success stories.
We just started. Yeah, we have a few episodes under our belt. It's been an interesting thing.
What's it called? Where would people find it?
Right now, you can find it on the PeachScore YouTube page. You can see it's we're calling it the Honest Hour podcast, and by PeachScore. So it's currently on the PeachScore YouTube page, and for us, we decided to do this for a couple of reasons. One, showcasing the companies is really important. Getting visibility for our companies as much as possible, and also sharing their stories. So one of the things you typically find in most conversations with entrepreneurs is talking to people that have made so they have some notoriety. They've made their millions. They built many amazing companies potentially, or they had that one major success, which is great, which is always really interesting to hear from them. What we wanted to do was look at this slightly different. What if talking to founders that are going through the journey? They're in their pre-seed stage. They're in their seed stage. They're going through trying to understand how to do product market fit. What are the challenges that they're facing? What is that? So when you talk to someone that's already built a $100 million company, they'll refer to some of those things, but their mindset and where they're at in the world is
they're
totally
past
different.
them. They're not in the raw moment of it.
They're not in the raw. That's the best way to. They're not in that raw moment of it. Versus a founder that's going, wow, I got 6 months runway left. I got 3 months runway left. What should I do? Or how do I approach product market fit? How much money should I raise? Or should I even raise all these things that I need a co-founder. Should I get one or not get one? I need to build a team. Oh, I need to go hire someone out of Amazon and they cost $300,000. How do I raise money to do that? All of these things, being able to have those conversations, I think is very valuable.
Do you find it easy to get founders to talk about those present moment challenges?
Well,
because as a founder, especially in a startup mode, like you want to present a good face and like, hey, like things are going well. We've got this bit of progress. And now you're kind of asking them to.
That's a good point. But so far, I think we have 3 sessions under our belt.
Okay.
I just did the 3rd session last Friday. And they're short. They're like 20, 30-minute sessions. So, I see what I'm mostly interested in is them, what they think about the process. It's not necessarily so we talk about why they built the company, what problem they're solving, but more about from the human side of it. How do they see this? Why do they believe having like advisors is a good thing? What are the challenges that they're facing, and that they feel like this particular challenge that I'm facing today is a lot more important than the things I was worrying about even months ago. I was stressing over things that I shouldn't have been. Right? It's those things that I think that are key. I mean, you're right. A goal isn't let's talk about all the dirty laundry, quote unquote, but it's more about just talk about some of the things that you're going through in terms of how it's helped you, but as well as how it can help others. Like one of the questions I typically ask is, as a founder, advice comes along a lot. What's the value of do they see in getting advisors, getting mentors, and then what do they do when they get conflicting answers? You can easily grab 10 people around you that tell you 10 different things. How do you decide which one to take? Right?
Yeah, my hat's off to you if you can get them to talk about sort of the present moment
Yeah.
challenges. It was something that I kind of thought about doing early on with this podcast. And I realized that that's sort of a tough spot to put somebody in, on air, because, then you're being super vulnerable in the moment. This is actually a really good lead in for my favorite question that I always ask my guests on this interview, which is,
Sure.
what's a serious challenge that you've gone through in the past, Peyman?
Me.
Yeah. How did you get through it? What did you learn?
Sure,
How
sure.
has it made you a better person today?
Well, when I built my first startup and it failed. So, and, I built that company after I left the corporate world thinking I want to be an entrepreneur. I've walked up the corporate ladder many times in different areas, and I want to try my hand up having my own business. And that's where actually the thought came in. I want my own business. And then I got into it because someone I knew proposed an idea, and I said, "Sure, that sounds good. Let's go try this." Knowing what I didn't know now, I would have done that so differently. I went into it very blindly, kind of believing and trusting things because they sounded good, not because of the hard data behind it. Picking team members that, because of knowing them, not because of whether there's alignment in terms of building the company and the strategic vision of it. So those things, and during that whole thing, started a company with few $1,000s, made, I don't know, a few tens of Ks of dollars. But at the end, it wasn't going to get to where I wanted to, but what the vision I had in mind because of how it started, because of the infrastructure that we built within that company in terms of scaling the customer base. I learned about the customer base. I thought I knew them, but 6 months into it, I started really knowing them. I'm like, wait a minute, this what we're trying to do, this market can't pay for it.
Can you be more specific about what it was that you learned?
Yeah, we the idea was to be able to serve the real estate agents that really. Well, I should also phrase this is like back 15 years ago, so this is not recent. So back then, marketing was really shifting towards online marketing. A lot of the realtors that were in the business for 20, 30 years, they weren't able to adapt, I should say, excuse me, that whole marketing shift. So us having technical background, we said, okay, we can help them. We can build their online presence. We can be their marketing arm. Back then agents would get like a single page with a little picture and like a paragraph about them on their broker's website. So we can change that. We can give them their own identity and all this. So that was the approach. The what I ended up finding out is that most realtors fake it till they make it. As many do. They may drive Mercedes, but they're not going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on websites, right? So understanding the market from the customer's perspective is something I learned the hard way there. You know, Assumptions that I had made going into that business, as time went by, I started validating those assumptions and realizing, which ones are true, which ones isn't. So towards that process, it really provided a different perspective in terms of what entrepreneurship is and what's the right way to approach it. And now I use that, when I talk with our founders. Like this morning, I was speaking with the founder that just joined us, describing to me the product that they're building. And when I shifted the conversation towards the customer, I'm like, okay, if you're the customer, these are the questions I would ask. How would you answer it? You would pause and say, well, I'm not sure. I got to think about that. It's like, let's go do that research. All right. So now I have like a founder that came and said, hey, I'm running surveys with different groups. And I got 2 ideas for a business, trying to see which one makes more sense. It's like amazing, the right thing. So that one particular experience for me, but it didn't by any means remove my desire to go into entrepreneurship. I knew that's something I wanted to do, but what it morphed into was not just building my own companies, but finding a way to help other founders. I one of the things I did very early in my career was, as I was finishing my degree, I actually did an internship at Hewlett Packard, and they asked me to go back to my alma mater and teach there as part of a sponsorship from HP. So I ended up becoming a like a quote unquote professor teaching a engineering course, and I did that for several years while I was living up there, and I really enjoyed that. And I never realized that about myself, that having this and it was really an interesting thing for me, because in fact the first semester I did it, the people in the class were my friends, my roommate, and my ex professors. Now they're all sitting in front of me, and I'm trying to teach them. And I was like, man, what can I teach these guys? And I realized, just because I was in the industry for, I think at that time, 9 months, what I was exposed to was so far ahead that what they had seen in academia, that there was value, that I could see that, okay, we're starting the conversation here on day one. By the time the semester ended, what knowledge I was able to partake. And that's always stuck with me. So now, I mean, one of the things for us to go from just a pure benchmarking scoring system to add this Accelerator program, add all this value, all this education into what we offer founders, it's kind of a very interesting, 360 moment for me. So,
Excuse me. So when you were going through that first startup, um, how did you get to the point of realizing this isn't going to work? Was there somebody from the outside that was sort of like shining a light for you? Was it a sudden realization for you? Was it like a slow burn where you kind of eventually got comfortable with the fact that
no,
what we're doing here isn't
it
working?
became. I'm a quick study, and after several months, I realized this isn't gonna work. Mainly because the co-founder I had, our thoughts about building a company was very different. His mind, nothing wrong with it. It's just, everybody has their way, their thoughts behind how to build a company. And what I had envisioned and what he had envisioned was slightly different. And not only that, the pressures of, leaving a high paying job and building a company. Now you're living off your savings. So it's like, okay, how much can I continue this before it can take off? Will it take off? And then seeing the dynamics with my business partner at that time, it became very evident to me that this isn't going to work long term. I either got to completely pivot the company, build it differently, maybe going to other markets as well, and also, from a company formation, from a partnership standpoint, that wasn't going to work. So, after, I think it was 9 months or so, I realized that this is not going to be as effective as I had thought. So.
Was there an emotional component there for you to deal with, or were you pretty
No,
cold and calculated and like, next thing?
no, but it was mutual. But it wasn't just me. It was, we both said this, like, okay, this is not going to work because of, honestly, and what drove it was, we can't feed two households with this company.
Maybe not
Right?
emotional between each other, but was there like an emotional component for
No,
you?
not at all. Not
You
at
were able
all.
to
Yeah,
separate
yeah, yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah. I've never been emotional that way whatsoever. I mean, business is business, life is life. I mean, for me, it's got to make sense to invest your energy someplace, right? I mean, you invest, all day long in terms of your energy, your work. I don't want to say it's your life, but it's a huge component of your life, right? Where you spend it, it's not with your family, it's not with your friends, it's like during and when you're building a company, it's not just 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, right? It's nights, weekends, holidays, doesn't matter. So I mean, yesterday was a holiday and I was working, so you have to be comfortable with that, you have to be okay with that. And if you realize that it's not working, you have to be okay with pulling the plug. So I mean, for me, I gotta really believe in something. And when I do, I don't let go. I don't bend the knee easily. But when I realize, okay, this is not going to work, I don't believe that it's going to work. Once the belief is gone, then it's immediate for me.
It's pretty clean cut for you. So up to this point, what are the biggest growth levers that you've been able to pull for PeachScore? What has contributed the most to
Oh,
that growth in the
the
number of
Accelerator
members?
program. Absolutely.
As soon as you guys added
Absolutely.
that,
No, no. See, I mean, we built the company around the benchmarking scoring system, which, I mean, it's a core part of what we do, right? But that by itself, it's like, how do we get scale in terms of globally people recognize this as something they need? Where the need is, we need to help people. We need to really help founders in all aspects of them building their business. And that realization was absolutely huge. I mean, I remember the day vividly when the founder called me, when Alex called me and said, "What do you think if you did this?" And we talked for days trying to really understand, and we didn't want to do it the same. And you go search online for accelerators, incubators. I mean, the lists are limitless, globally. So the differentiation was one thing, but the value, that was to me, to us, was really, really huge. The value that we can provide founders. Now we can truly help them. I mean, that what I mean, it was like, wow, this is it. Like for me, that was really huge. So.
how do most people find you, Peyman?
Good question. For me personally, or
No,
PeachScore?
PeachScore. Yeah.
PeachScore, well, you just look up PeachScore. PeachScore.com is the best way to find us.
Sorry, let me rephrase the question. How do most people become aware of PeachScore?
So that
Are you guys running Facebook ads? Is it
no,
word
no,
of
no. I got
mouth?
it. From a marketing standpoint.
From a marketing
Okay.
perspective. Yeah.
First, it's through our partnerships. We love partnerships. I mean, if you look on our websites right now, it says PeachScore plus DLUM. DLUM is a massive organization around supporting angel groups out of Estonia. They're one of our key partners. We announce partnerships quite regularly because partnerships are key for business. Having the right partners can really elevate you. See, one of the challenges that PeachScore, we're a fairly young company. One of the things that every young company has a challenge of is exactly that. How do people find you? Right? My goal is for anyone that around the world that says, okay, we need help. Where should we go? They might think, well, YC or PeachScore. That's what I want. I want us. Right now, actually, I think if you search for accelerators on ChatGPT, our name comes up pretty high, if not the highest. So getting our name recognition, getting people to know who we are is really important. And this is true for every startup. So to answer your question from a marketing standpoint, partnerships, that's a great vehicle for any founder, any startup. You build the right partnerships. And see, I look at partnerships as building bridges, but I look at it slightly different. So partnerships, you typically say there needs to be a win-win. Absolutely. But I look at it and say there needs to be a win-win-win, 3 wins. Well, how is that? Well, I need to provide a win to my partner. They need to provide a win to me, but combined, we need to provide a win to the ecosystem, to the startup community, right? And those are the type of synergetic partnerships that we look for. Companies that are completely aligned in terms of the vision that we have, in terms of the value and the support that we want to offer founders globally. And when you do that, your brand awareness really rises.
It sounds to me like, especially with the introduction of the Accelerator program more recently, that you guys are already offering tremendous value and services to your members. What does the future look like? Are there other services that you want to offer? Or is it sort of like we've got a core group of services,
Sure.
We just want to get the word out more?
Well, no, there's definitely that. We want to continue getting the word out. But no, I envision being able to have founders be able to utilize PeachScore from the time they think of a company all the way onto Series A and beyond, and every aspect of it. Being able to tie it to financial aspects of their, being able to, through our partners, being able to open bank accounts, being able to manage their cap table, all kinds of different things. We can, this is the thing I love, because we're a tech company. We're not a services company purely, right? Because of that, we're able to say, okay, how else can we help a founder? So one of the things that we just did we introduced, I think I mentioned it early in our conversation, a AI-based tool to analyze a PDF pitch deck. All right. So now it's the same way our benchmarking report. Now you don't have to sit down with an advisor. You don't have to go find a mentor. You can come onto the PeachScore platform, upload your pitch deck, see the report, see what it says. And you can analyze that, go to the educational components that we talk about, and then be able to do that. So we can do that in a number of different areas as you building your business. What type of entity structure should you have? How do what type of bank accounts, who you should bank, suggestions for that. Cap table management, all these, and with our partners that we have, being able to bring in solutions all in one place, so you have like a dashboard to be able to really manage your business. I definitely can see our company growing in that direction, being able to add more and more value to our founders, and then also for them to be able to gain visibility throughout the investment corporate community via their PeachScore profiles. And that will, they can renew their membership with us on an annual basis, and they'll continue staying with us as we continue to support it.
Peyman, I've just got one more question for you.
Sure.
Before I ask it, I'm going to invite everyone to go ahead and hit the follow button on their favorite podcast app. Continue to get more great interviews like we've had today with Peyman from PeachScore.com. I think we've already covered this next point, which is how can folks get in touch with you? It's PeachScore.com or the PeachScore channel on YouTube. Any other ways for folks to?
They're also on Instagram. I think we're starting to also get going on X and some of the other platforms. Me personally, the best way to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn. Obviously, PeachScore is on LinkedIn as well. And on my email is peyman@peachscore.com. Very easy if you'd like to get a hold of me.
We'll include links for all that in the show notes, folks.
Yeah.
But last question for you, Peyman. What's your superpower? How would you characterize that?
A jack of all trades. That I've actually had management I work with call me that. See, part of this, I don't know how much time we have, but I can give you a little story. I graduated high school at 16. So when I graduated that early, and first time immigrant, my parents that came here, they didn't go to college, so for them, I was first child, graduating, trying to go. I had no idea, and I was good in math, so I was like, okay, I need to apply to college because I guess that's what you're supposed to do when you graduate high school. And I literally thought about it that way. So I went and sat down with a counselor. I'm like, I'm going to apply. It's like, where do you want to apply? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, keep in mind, 16-year-old kid immigrated here like, 4.5 years earlier. Oh. I have no clue about any of this. And my parents didn't know either. So it was, going to a school counselor and they're like, well, the school here. So I went to California State University, Sacramento. That's where I grew up. And they're like, it's a great school. What do you want to study? I'm like, I don't know. That was really I don't know. They're like, well, you're great in math. You're doing it. How about you be a math major? Sure. So I went into Sac State as a math major. And I started meeting friends and they started asking me, what's your major? I'm like, math. They're like, oh, fantastic. You want to be a teacher? I'm like, no, I don't. Who says I want to be a teacher? And then, I started really saying, okay, I got to really figure this out. I can't just let other people decide which way I want to go. And at the time, computers were really starting, the personal computers. We're talking 486s, I'm aging myself there. Started coming out and I had a lot of interest in using them. And so I started looking, and Sac State actually, very interesting school because they had a computer science program and they had started a computer engineering program, right? And then they obviously had electronic engineering. And at first I thought electrical engineering, right? That's the thing. But then I met students that graduated and then next fall they were back. And I asked them why. They're like, there's no jobs. So I'm like, okay, I got to really figure this out. They were like, at that time, electrical engineering was the fastest growing thing. So the competition was too high. So then I started looking at computers, science or engineering, what's the difference? And I learned computer science. It's mainly you become a programmer. You start the coding and development. engineering, you get to do both hardware and software, and that intrigued me. And that's been something that's in me all the time. I'm not satisfied with doing just one thing. It's a constant growth. I got to learn more. I got to figure new things out. So it's like, oh, I can do software and hardware. Fantastic. So roll the clock forward. Now I graduated, and I actually got into HP through a sponsorship program that HP was doing, where they sent one of their management out of the engineering group to teach a new program on ASIC design, custom chip design, using Verilog. And they handpicked top 12 students out of the computer engineering program, and I was one of them. And they said, you guys need to go into this program. We're like, why? We're graduates. No, you guys got to go in there. And what we didn't know was a recruiting mechanism for HP. So most of us got hired into HP during that program. And I actually, at that time, I was doing that class, and also in a class that I was writing an operating system for the graduation course requirement. I was really enjoying that.
Not a piece of software, but a whole
an
OS,
actual operating system. Yeah. It was an operating system course. And so when I got in it, this was so interesting, because when they brought the HP management to talk to us to see who's a good fit, when they asked me what I wanted to do, what I like doing, I was having so much fun in that OS class. That's what I talked about. And they're like, okay, these guys are hardware folks. Peyman is a software folk. So they actually hired me to go into their software group. And I was like, that's really interesting. But I went in, and I went. It was so great, because I was able to work in software, in firmware actually, not software, for doing low-level code. And I got to do all kinds of new stuff, new innovations there right out of school. And then, sure enough, 9 months later, they asked me to go back and teach, as I mentioned. But then I was like, you know what? I want to do something different now. Now imagine this. 2 years out of school, I want to say I want to do something different. Like, sure, what do you want to do? I want to say I want to do some hardware stuff. So the 5 years I was at HP, I did almost every engineering job that division had, and I was able to move around, and that followed me throughout my career.
And Jack of all trades. It's what gives you that 360 view that we were talking about before.
So I ended up, throughout my career, been a software engineer, been a hardware engineer. Then I was like, but a lot of it, I got to give credit to the management that I had, because they've given me the opportunity to do it, regardless of it. Because it's very easy to say, no, we hired you to be this, you stay in doing that. And they didn't see it that way. And, those first 5 years, and even when I left HP, to start a design center for Philips Semiconductors. And when I did that, even there, I was doing different things. And it was like, program management. I got into program management because management came and said, hey, we got this giant project going on, multiple sites. There's nobody managing this whole thing. Can you go manage this? I'm like, I've never done that. They're like, you figure it out. Just go do it. And that's how I got into program management. And after that was over, they're like, hey, we need some help in marketing. You want to come and do that? So I ended up and I got this really broad background and experience. And now in PeachScore, I'm able to talk to founders about all of these different aspects of building their company. So it's really interesting how some early things in your career end up really helping shape how you can give back and you can provide value. Anyhow, sorry, long story, but...
Peyman from PeachScore.com. I want to be the first one to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Thank you for having me. It's been a great discussion.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.